Hello and welcome to my presentation on strategies for stemming the flow of church teens leaving the church when they reach adulthood. My name is Tom Tweedle. I've been a youth pastor for 14 years, and one of the things I noticed was that it seems as though there are a lot of young adults leaving church after they graduate from high school. I learned that it wasn't just happening to me, but there's actually a massive exodus that is going on in the church. More than half are leaving the church after graduating. Again, I want to point out that these are kids who grew up in church and then made the decision after they graduated to leave. This is an issue across all denominations. Research shows that kids are leaving after they graduate. Again, not some, but most. And various studies place this between 55 to 70% of kids leaving the church. This has been going on for decades across all denominations. So the big question is why? Why are our kids leaving? Is there something specific that can be done? I believe that there is. After coming through many resources, I will present to you 5 different areas and strategies that I think can have the greatest impact on stemming the flow of unchurched kids leaving the church once they reach adulthood. The first area is this. It's parents. Parents are found to be the #1 influence in their child's life. Some researchers said this: the connection is nearly deterministic. The strongest determinant of apostasy in young people turned out to be relations with the parents. Now, if you're a parent watching this and you have a young child, this is fantastic news for you. You have the largest impact on whether or not your son or daughter continues to go to church once they leave your nest. But you need to be intentional and properly equipped to have the positive impact that you desire. The greatest way that you can do that is by modeling. Parents who talk the talk but don't walk the walk are one of the biggest reasons that children walk away from church when they're old enough to make the decision on their own. Now, I just want to let you know, as we go through the rest of this presentation, you're going to see specific things that not just parents can do, but the whole church can do. Those things will work with this as well. Many of the strategies should be working in tandem with one another. So just keep that in mind as I go through. Walking the walk is not good enough for parents as they model. They must talk the talk as well. One of the strongest factors associated with older teens keeping their faith as young adults was having parents who talked about religion and spirituality at home. One study that I found indicated that only 12% of youth had a regular faith conversation with their mom, while only 5% had a regular faith conversation with their dad. Having faith discussions outside of church has shown to have a massive positive effect on children. Now, just to note, remember that a discussion goes both ways. It's not a monologue or a lecture, but a dialogue where the parent doesn't just speak, but also listens to the child as well. While society is encouraging parents to allow children to live their own lives, parents should live out their faith with their child together. Not just going to church together, but serving together, giving together, and praying together. It's great for our kids to have their own areas to serve in, but when they share the experience of serving at a soup kitchen with their parents or choosing as a family, what missionary project are we going to be giving to and praying for this year as a family? It helps those kids process and cement their faith because they're seeing how an adult is living out their faith, which will prepare them for what they will be doing once they reach adulthood. You've heard the phrase monkey see, monkey do. Well, child sees what the parent does, child will do what the parent does. Moving on to our second area, I want to talk about religion. Specifically, how many young adults view Christianity. Many young adults see Christianity as a set of rules, a bunch of do's and don'ts that they're supposed to adhere to. There's also a massive distrust of institutions, from large corporations to government to the church. Couple the institution of the church with a bunch of rules and sprinkle in an increasingly progressive society. And this is what we hear young people saying. The church is just too judgmental. It's full of hypocrites. Why would I want to go to a place that says I'll never be good enough, where they won't accept me? Why would I want to be around people like that, or in an institution that I can't trust? Now, here's the thing. Since I started talking about how young adults view religion and Christianity, something big has been left out of this conversation. And that thing is Jesus. Yes, Christianity is full of rules. It also doesn't take long to hear of how a church has abused its power as an institution. We all know someone who's been hypocritical or judgmental. And if you don't know anyone, I want you to pause, head to the bathroom real quick, and look above the sink, and you'll find someone. My notes say to pause for laughter and hope people understand that joke. The thing is, everything that I just listed is a real problem. But when Jesus steps onto the scene, everything changes. Jesus is bigger than all these problems. In fact, Jesus came to earth to fix these problems. But when young people don't have a relationship with Jesus, they don't want to have anything to do with the church. And who can blame them? I wouldn't want to have anything to do with the church if Jesus wasn't there. So what do we do? How do we highlight the person of Jesus over the religiosity of Christianity? What's the problem? The problem is that there are two different gospels. The first gospel is the gospel of sin management. It's about rules, and when you don't follow the rules, you feel shame, so you try to do more good than bad. The problem with this way of living is that it is ultimately unattainable. The rules can't be lived up to, and doubts and shame and fear and guilt will just flood my mind as I wonder, did I do enough good to cancel out the bad? The gospel of Jesus Christ is different. You see, it's not good advice or you need to follow these rules. It's not a good ideas for living, but it is good news about Jesus. It's not based on works, but it's based upon faith. It admits that man and the church is severely flawed. It admits that I'm severely flawed. The good news is that Jesus is more than enough to cover those flaws. The thing is, if young people are grasping the gospel of sin management, if that is what they think church is about, what Christianity is all about, they won't want to have anything to do with the church. But if young people have a good grasp of the true gospel of Jesus Christ, by the time that they graduate, they are less likely to be disillusioned and end up leaving the church. The third area that needs attention is that of intergenerational connections. Now, in church, people are frequently split up by age. This makes some sense because kids won't understand what the senior pastor has to say on a Sunday morning. So the kids go to kids' church. Some church continue this model through teenagehood. Teens don't hear the Sunday sermon for adults, but something for them from someone else. This form of ministry can sometimes lead to ministry silos, where someone's experience with church is only experienced within their own group. They don't know what church is like outside of that group. One of the biggest problems with this model is the transition from the youth group silo to the adult church silo. Teens graduate and move out of high school, but there's a lot of change that goes on. Everyone goes in different directions. This kid goes away to college. This kid gets a job here. This one does community college. Some kids stay at home, some move out of the house. There's a lot of transitioning going on. And frequently, when college kids are asked why they don't go to church, this is what they say. Well, I don't know anyone there anymore. I've heard this as a pastor multiple times throughout my life. Way too many, in fact. So what do we do? How do we fix this? Research suggests that the answer is in increasing intergenerational connections in the church. You connect the old with the young. That way, when the young get older, they already have formed relationships with the old, and now they know people at church. There are different ways to do this. Incorporating children and youth into other areas of the church besides their own silo. Have the youth read scripture for service on Sunday morning. Have them play instruments or even do announcements. Invite the children and the teens to the men's retreats and the women's breakfast. Have them be a part of those Bible studies. Bring them in. One-on-one relationships should be cultivated as well. Adults that aren't parents can have a huge effect on children and teens. If you take a child and any random adult in church and give that child attention, that child will soak it up. Kids need those one-on-one relationships with parents, with adults besides their parents. Some churches say that for every 5 students, there should be 1 adult. Now, this is usually in regards to children's services or retreats, so that there's enough supervision. Others have said that every child should have 5 adults pouring into them. Now, this doesn't mean if you have 5 kids in a room on Sunday morning, you need to have 25 adults. What it means is that every child has 5 different adults throughout the entire church that they can go to, besides their parents, for prayer, wisdom, mentoring, and faith discussions. The more connections that kids make before they graduate, the more reasons they will have for staying in church while navigating through young adulthood. The fourth strategy that churches can use to stem the flow of young adults from leaving is by creating service opportunities. This is so simple in theory, it just needs to be done in practice. Action creates a sense of belonging in people. So giving young people opportunities for service makes it more likely that they will stay in the place where they feel that they belong. Just to highlight that while missions trips can be great opportunities, as well as serving at the soup kitchen every Thanksgiving or helping at the yearly Easter egg hunt, these single-serve opportunities, they just pale in comparison to service that is done regularly. By setting up tables or chairs at the women's Bible study every week, or helping teach in the children's Sunday school once a month, or helping to run the slides on a Sunday morning for the adult service. Young people are ingrained with the idea that church is not something to be consumed, but something that they can contribute to on a regular basis. And when someone is contributing and investing regularly, they don't want to leave. Our final strategy will seem very similar to providing service opportunities, but it is different. There's a difference between serving under someone and serving beside someone. And then there's an even greater difference when it comes to leading someone else in service. When people are given the chance to lead something, to make decisions, they get a sense of ownership. Language changes. They start to use possessive language, talking about my church or our team. We can do this with our youth. When churches look for opportunities to hand over the reins of leadership to younger people in church, they're telling the young people that they care about them enough to let them direct some parts of ministry. It isn't the adult saying, hey, you can do this in my church. It's saying, hey, how do we want to do church together? Can you tell me what you want? To summarize, when these 5 strategies are used together, the church is more likely to keep young people connected and engaged with the church past graduation and through young adulthood. By equipping parents to model and discuss their faith with their kids. By highlighting the person of Jesus over the religiosity of Christianity. By increasing intergenerational connections, by giving service opportunities to young people, and by giving leadership opportunities to young people as well, so that they feel like they have some ownership in the church. Everything that I've shared with you, I'm going to throw some references up on the screen. Everything that I've shared, I have pulled from personal experiences, but also all these references as well. I just want to highlight a few things. Dave Hartwick's book, Good Kids, Big Events and Matching T-Shirts, Changing the Conversation on Health and Youth Ministry, is fantastic about talking about what wins in youth ministry look like and how important it is that our kids grasp what the gospel is. David Kinnaman has done a ton of research, and he's put out more material than these 3 books about why young people leave the church, why people who are not a part of the church are worried about coming in. He's done a lot of research into those areas. Colin Clark's book, Sticky Faith, Everyday Ideas to Build Lasting Faith in Your Kids. Great book for parents to look at if they want to get ideas on how to model their faith. The Unstuck Church, Equipping Churches to Experience Sustained Health by Morgan. That is a fantastic resource talking about how churches actually need to incorporate young people in to be healthy themselves. It's not about reaching young people, but saying for a church to be healthy, it needs to have young people. A bunch of Smiths here. Adolescent Spiritual Formation, Practical Theology as a Filter for Youth Ministry was a great resource, pulling a bunch of different youth ministers and their years of experience on what is good youth ministry. And then here is my last slide. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.